My name is Jordan Matthews, and that Thanksgiving dinner wasn't just another family gathering. It was the moment 15 years of careful planning, strategic silence, and documented evidence finally converged into the most satisfying 5 minutes of my entire life. But to understand why my father's fork hit that plate with such a deafening clang, you need to understand the Matthews family dynamics. Specifically, you need to understand my sister Victoria. Victoria was born first. That's it. That's her entire qualification for being the golden child. She arrived 3 years before me, and from that moment forward, our parents treated her like she'd invented oxygen. Every achievement I ever had was compared to hers. Every milestone I reached was measured against what she'd done at the same age. Every choice I made was scrutinized through the lens of, what would Victoria do? When Victoria got AB in chemistry, Mom said she was working so hard. When I got AB in calculus, Dad asked why I wasn't applying myself. When Victoria chose a state school, they called it being financially responsible. When I got a full scholarship to an Ivy League university, they said I was abandoning my roots. The house in question, the one Victoria was so confidently claiming, was my grandmother's. My mother's mother, Eleanor Price. A 3-bedroom craftsman in Portland's Laurel Hist neighborhood, built in 1924, worth approximately $1.8 million by 2018 standards. Grandma Eleanor had lived there for 62 years. She'd raised my mother there. She'd hosted every Christmas, every birthday, every family gathering in that house. And she'd watched, with increasingly sharp eyes, how my parents treated their 2 daughters. Victoria moved back home after college. She lasted 8 months in the real world before deciding that paying rent was throwing money away, and that she needed to save strategically. My parents welcomed her with open arms. She took over the master bedroom. She treated Mom like a personal chef and Dad like a maintenance man. I, on the other hand, graduated summa cum laude with a degree in finance, moved to Seattle and built a career in estate planning and trust law. I visited once a month. I called Grandma Eleanor every Sunday. And I never, not once, asked my parents for money. But in the Matthews family narrative, Victoria was smart with money for living at home rent-free, and I was distant for being independent. The real shift happened in 2016 during one of my Sunday calls with Grandma Eleanor. "Jordan, sweetheart, I need to talk to you about something serious," she said. Her voice had that particular quality, the one that meant she'd been thinking about something for a long time. "What's wrong, Grandma?" "Nothing's wrong. But I'm 84 years old and I need to make some decisions about my estate. I want to know if you'd be willing to meet with me and my attorney." We met the following Saturday. Grandma Eleanor's estate attorney, Robert Chin, had been handling her affairs for 30 years. He was thorough, strategic, and had zero tolerance for family drama. "Jordan," Grandma said, sitting in Robert's office with her hands folded, "I'm going to be direct. I've watched your parents favor Victoria your entire life. I've watched them dismiss your achievements and inflate hers. I've watched them enable her dependence while criticizing your independence." I started to protest, out of habit really, but she held up her hand. "I'm not finished. I've also watched you build a successful career, maintain your integrity, and treat people with respect. You call me every week. You remember my birthday. You ask about my life, not my assets. Victoria hasn't visited me in 14 months. Robert slid a document across his desk. Your grandmother wants to transfer her house to you via quit-claim deed. Effective immediately. She'll retain life estate rights, meaning she can live there until she passes, but you'll be the legal owner. When she's gone, the house is yours. No probate. No contests. No ambiguity." I was 26 years old. I was staring at documents that would make me the owner of a $1.8 million property. "Grandma, I can't." "You can and you will," she said firmly. "This is my house, Jordan. I bought it with my late husband in 1956. I decide what happens to it. And I'm deciding it goes to the granddaughter who actually values family over real estate." We signed the papers on March 15, 2016. The deed was recorded with Multnomah County 3 days later. It was public record. Anyone could have looked it up. No one did. Grandma Eleanor swore Robert and me to secrecy with one specific instruction: let's see how long it takes them to notice that someone other than Victoria might deserve something. The answer was, they never noticed. For the next 2 years I built my career. I moved from estate planning associate to senior trust officer at Cascade Wealth Management. I managed portfolios worth $400 million. I earned my certified financial planner designation. I bought a condo in Seattle's Capitol Hill neighborhood. And every month I drove to Portland to have lunch with Grandma Eleanor. Victoria, meanwhile, continued living at home. She worked part-time as a social media consultant, which meant she posted on Instagram and occasionally got paid $200 for it. She dated a series of men who my parents always found not quite right for her. She talked endlessly about her 5-year plan that never seemed to progress past year 1. But here's what I noticed and what I started documenting. Victoria had access to Grandma Eleanor's house. My parents had given her a key in case of emergencies. And starting in 2017, Victoria began mentioning helping Grandma with the house. During one visit, I noticed new patio furniture on Grandma's deck. "Those are nice," I said. Grandma's expression tightened. Victoria ordered them, said they were a gift. Then she told me they cost $3,400 and asked me to pay her back. "Did you?" I did. "I'm too old to argue about patio furniture." That was the first red flag. The second came 3 months later. Victoria had helped Grandma get a new HVAC system. Cost $12,000. Victoria had arranged it, chosen the contractor, and supervised the installation. She presented Grandma with the bill. I reviewed the invoice. The system was worth maybe $7,000 retail. Victoria's friend's company had charged $12,000, and I'd bet anything Victoria got a kickback. "Grandma, did you get other quotes?" Victoria said her friend would give us the best price. I started keeping a file. Every gift Victoria gave that required repayment. Every favor that came with a bill. Every helpful intervention that cost Grandma Eleanor money. By 2018, my file showed $47,000 in questionable expenses. Then Grandma Eleanor got sick. It started as fatigue. Then came the diagnosis, stage 4 pancreatic cancer. The oncologist gave her 6 months to a year. That's when the Matthews family suddenly became very interested in Grandma Eleanor's affairs. Victoria started visiting weekly. She brought flowers. She posted photos on Instagram with captions like, "Cherishing every moment with Gram 2 hearts #family first." She talked constantly about making sure Grandma was comfortable. And she started asking questions about the house. "Gram, have you thought about what happens to the house after, you know? Gram, do you have an estate plan? Gram, maybe you should talk to Mom and Dad about the house. We want to make sure everything's handled right." My parents joined in. During a family dinner in July 2018, Dad brought it up directly. "Mom, we need to talk about your estate planning. We want to help you organize everything." Grandma Eleanor smiled sweetly. "It's all handled, dear. Robert Chin has everything organized. But have you thought about the house? That's a significant asset. We should discuss." "It's handled," she repeated. Victoria jumped in. "Gram, I've been thinking. I could move in here and take care of you. You wouldn't have to worry about anything. And then after, well, it would make sense for me to stay, right? Since I'd be the one caring for you." I watched this performance from across the table. I said nothing. Grandma Eleanor's smile never wavered. "That's sweet, Victoria. But I have home health care arranged. I don't need you to move in. But I want to. Family should take care of family. You're welcome to visit anytime, dear." The subject was dropped. But I saw the look that passed between my parents and Victoria. They had a plan. Grandma Eleanor passed away on November 3, 2018. She went peacefully in her sleep in her own bed. I was there. I'd driven down the night before because something told me it was time. Victoria posted about it on Instagram 40 minutes after Grandma died. The photo was from 6 months earlier. The caption talked about sudden loss, even though we'd had 9 months to prepare. The funeral was a performance. Victoria sobbed dramatically. She talked about how close they'd been. She wore all black and told anyone who'd listen about her deep bond with Grandma Eleanor. I wore navy blue and spoke briefly at the service about Grandma's love of gardening and her terrible jokes. The real show came 2 weeks later. My parents called a family meeting. "We need to discuss your grandmother's estate," Dad said. "There are some decisions to make." We gathered in my parents' living room. Mom, Dad, Victoria, and me. Robert Chin was notably absent. My parents had decided this was a family discussion. "Your grandmother left the house to all of us," Mom began. This was a lie, but I didn't interrupt. "We need to decide what to do with it." Victoria leaned forward. "I think I should live there." "Honey, that's a lot of house for one person," Dad said, but his tone suggested he'd already agreed. But I've been taking care of it for years. I helped Graham with everything. I know that house inside and out. It makes sense. Mom nodded. Victoria has a point. She's been very involved. What about Jordan? Dad asked in a tone that suggested this was a formality. Jordan has her own place in Seattle, Victoria said quickly. She doesn't need it. I finally spoke. What does Grandma's will say? Silence. Have any of you actually read the will? I asked. Robert Chin said he'd send us copies, Mom said defensively. But in the meantime we can discuss. No, I said quietly. In the meantime we should wait for the actual legal documents. Victoria's eyes narrowed. Why are you being difficult about this? I'm not being difficult. I'm being accurate. The meeting ended awkwardly. Over the next 3 weeks, my parents and Victoria began behaving as though Victoria's occupation of the house was a done deal. Victoria started talking about renovations she wanted to make. She posted Instagram photos of interior design inspiration with captions like, "New chapter in Graham's house with garden #blessed." She even had mail forwarded there. And then came Thanksgiving 2018. My parents decided to host at their house. A pointed decision, since Thanksgiving had always been at Grandma Eleanor's. The guest list included my parents, Victoria, me, Uncle James, Dad's brother, Aunt Carol and my cousins. 20 minutes into dinner, Victoria cleared her throat. I have some exciting news to share, she announced. She looked radiant, triumphant even. Mom and Dad have decided to help me purchase Graham's house. We're signing the paperwork next week. Everyone applauded. Uncle James raised his glass. That's wonderful, Victoria. Keeping it in the family. Actually, Victoria continued, glancing at me, they're signing the house over to me. I'll be the sole owner. It's what Graham would have wanted. More applause. More congratulations. Mom smiled warmly. We thought about splitting it between both girls, but Jordan has her career in Seattle. She doesn't need it. And Victoria's been so devoted to that house. Dad nodded. It's the right decision. Victoria looked directly at me. Jordan, you understand, right? I mean, you've barely visited Grandma in years. I'd visited once a month, every month for 10 years. But I didn't correct her. Jordan. Mom prompted. Say something. Be happy for your sister. I took a sip of water. I looked at my father, at the man who'd spent my entire life telling me I wasn't good enough, that Victoria was the smart one, the responsible one, the one who deserved everything. And I smiled. Dad, should I tell them or will you? The room went silent. Dad's fork, he'd been cutting turkey, stopped mid-motion. His face went pale. I watched the blood drain from his cheeks as realization hit him like a freight train. The fork dropped. It hit his plate with a clang that echoed through the dining room. Victoria laughed nervously. Tell us what? I kept my eyes on Dad. You know what I'm talking about, don't you? He opened his mouth. Closed it. Opened it again. No sound came out. Mom looked between us. Someone explain what's happening. Dad. I prompted gently. Would you like to tell everyone what you discovered last week? Because here's what I knew and what Dad had apparently just realized I knew. After Grandma Eleanor's death, the house legally passed to me automatically. No probate required. Life estate terminated upon death. I became the sole owner on November 3, 2018, at 3:47 a.m. And Dad, meticulous, detail-oriented Dad, had finally done what he should have done months ago. He'd pulled the property records. He'd seen my name on the deed. Dated March 15, 2016. Victoria's smile was frozen. Tell us what? I reached into my bag and pulled out a folder. Inside were copies of the quit-claim deed, the life estate documentation, and the current property record showing me as sole owner. I slid them across the table to Victoria. Grandma transferred the house to me 2.5 years ago, I said calmly. You can't sign papers for a house you don't own. And Mom and Dad definitely can't sign over a house that isn't theirs. Victoria grabbed the papers. Her eyes scanned the first page. Then the second. Her hands started shaking. This isn't, you can't. March 2016, I said. Public record. Anyone could have looked it up. Mom snatched the papers from Victoria. She read them. Her face went from confused to shocked to furious in about 10 seconds. How did you, Eleanor wouldn't. This has to be a mistake. It's not a mistake, I said. Grandma made this decision intentionally. She wanted the house to go to the granddaughter who actually valued her as a person, not as a real estate asset. Uncle James, who'd been silent, leaned forward. Jordan, are you saying you've owned that house for 2 years? Yes. And you never told anyone? Grandma asked me not to. She wanted to see how long it took before anyone noticed that I might deserve something too. Victoria's voice came out as a shriek. You've been lying for 2 years? I haven't lied about anything. I simply didn't volunteer information that no one asked about. When have any of you ever asked about my life? My career? My achievements? Aunt Carol, trying to be diplomatic, said, but surely Eleanor meant for the family to share. Eleanor meant exactly what she documented legally, I interrupted. She was very clear about her intentions. Victoria was hyperventilating now. But I've been taking care of that house. I've spent thousands. You've spent Grandma's thousands, I corrected. I have documentation of every bill you submitted to her. The $3,400 patio furniture. The $12,000 HVAC system that should have cost $7,000. The landscaping, the window treatments, the appliance upgrades. All told, you charged Grandma approximately $47,000 for improvements to a house you assumed you'd inherit. Mom stood up. That is enough. Your sister was helping. My sister was padding bills and taking kickbacks, I said, my voice still calm. I have invoices. I have market comparisons. I have documentation. Dad finally found his voice. Jordan, we need to discuss this as a family. There's nothing to discuss. The house is mine. It's been mine since 2016. What you're proposing, signing over property you don't own, would be fraud. But Victoria's been living there. Mom protested. She has rights. Victoria has been living in my house without my permission. She has no rights. The room erupted. Victoria was crying. Mom was shouting. Aunt Carol was trying to calm everyone down. Uncle James looked like he was doing complex math in his head, probably calculating Victoria's improvements against market rates. I sat quietly and let them rage. Finally, Victoria's tears turned to anger. You are such a bitch. You've been planning this the whole time, haven't you? You turned Grandma against us. I didn't have to turn Grandma against anyone, I said. You did that yourselves. 14 months without a visit. But you showed up real quick when she got sick, didn't you? I was busy. You worked part-time from home. You weren't busy. You were indifferent. Until the house became relevant. Dad tried a different approach. Jordan, be reasonable. We're family. Surely we can come to some arrangement. What arrangement would that be, Dad? The one where I give up my property to make Victoria happy? The one where my hard work, my achievements, my relationship with Grandma all mean nothing because Victoria was born first. That's not fair, Mom said. You're right, I replied. It's not fair. It hasn't been fair for 29 years. But Grandma Eleanor made sure that at least one thing in my life would be decided by merit instead of birth order. I stood up and collected my papers. Victoria, you have 30 days to remove your belongings from my house. I'll have the locks changed on December 26th. If anything is missing or damaged, I'll pursue legal action. If you've forwarded mail there, redirect it. If you've changed your driver's license to that address, change it back. You can't just kick me out. Victoria screamed. I absolutely can. You're not a tenant. We have no lease. You've been occupying my property without permission. Legally, I'm being generous by giving you 30 days. Mom's voice was ice. If you do this, Jordan, you're choosing property over family. I looked at her, really looked at her, for the first time in years with complete clarity. No, Mom. I'm choosing to respect Grandma Eleanor's wishes and protect what's legally mine. You're the ones who chose property over family. You just assumed it would go the way you wanted. I walked to the door. Uncle James called out, Jordan, wait. I turned. Did she leave anything else? She left a small trust for her church and another for the community garden she volunteered at for 40 years. The rest of her estate, approximately $180,000 in savings and investments, was divided equally between her 2 granddaughters. Victoria's head snapped up. Equally. Grandma Eleanor wasn't cruel. She just wanted the house, her home, her legacy, to go to someone who'd earned it. I left. My phone started ringing before I reached my car. I declined every call. The next morning I drove to Portland and met with Robert Chin. I assume Thanksgiving didn't go well, he asked. Define well. He smiled. Eleanor predicted this, you know. She told me they'll be furious. They'll say I wasn't in my right mind. They'll say Jordan manipulated me. She wanted me to remind you that every decision was documented, witnessed, and legally sound. Thank you, Robert. There's something else. He pulled out another folder. Your grandmother left this for you. Instructions to open it after you told the family about the house. Inside was a letter, written in Grandma Eleanor's shaky handwriting. My dearest Jordan, if you're reading this, you've finally told them. I imagine they didn't take it well. Your mother never did handle being told no. I want you to know that giving you this house was the easiest decision I ever made. You earned it. Not through manipulation or pleading, but through simple, consistent love. You called every week. You remembered my stories. You asked about my life. Victoria saw me as a future asset. You saw me as your grandmother. I know your parents favor her. I know they always have. I watched it break my daughter's heart to watch her own parents repeat the same favoritism with her children. He should have protected you. He didn't. I'm sorry for that. But I could do this one thing. I could make sure that your dedication, your kindness, and your integrity were rewarded. Don't let them make you feel guilty. Don't let them convince you that you're being selfish. You're not. You're accepting a gift that you earned through love, not entitlement. Live in that house. Fill it with happiness. Make it a home the way I did for 62 years. And know that your grandmother saw you, valued you, and loved you exactly as you deserved. All my love, Grandma Eleanor. I cried in Robert Chen's office for 15 minutes. The legal fallout was minimal. Victoria tried to challenge the deed, claiming Grandma Eleanor wasn't mentally competent in 2016. Robert Chen produced medical records, witness statements, and notary documentation proving she was sharp as a tack. My parents tried the "we made improvements" angle, submitting Victoria's bills as proof they'd invested in the property. I countered with market analysis showing the improvements were inflated by 40 to 60% and demanded repayment for unauthorized modifications. That shut them down fast. Victoria moved out on December 23rd. She took everything she could carry, including Grandma Eleanor's tea kettle collection and several houseplants. I documented it and decided it wasn't worth pursuing. The locks were changed on December 26th as promised. I spent my first night as the sole resident of Grandma Eleanor's house on January 1, 2019. I sat on the porch swing she'd installed in 1987, wrapped in a blanket, watching the Portland rain. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. You destroyed this family. I hope you're happy. I blocked the number. Victoria had sent similar messages from 3 different phones over the past month. But here's what actually happened to the Matthews family. Uncle James reached out 2 weeks after Thanksgiving. He'd done the math on Victoria's improvements and confronted my parents about enabling her. He and I started having coffee monthly. Aunt Carol sent me a handwritten note apologizing for not speaking up sooner. She'd seen the favoritism for years and regretted her silence. My cousins surprisingly were supportive. The youngest, Emma, told me, everyone knew Victoria was the favorite. It's about time someone called it out. My parents? Radio silence for 4 months. Then Mom sent an email saying they were disappointed in my choices, but were willing to move forward if I showed some humility and understanding. I didn't respond. Victoria spiraled. Without the house to occupy and my parents' financial support stretching thin, she had to get a real job. She lasted 6 weeks at a marketing firm before quitting because the culture was toxic. She moved in with a boyfriend in March 2019. They broke up in May. She moved back in with my parents. She's still there. As for me, I kept my job in Seattle but started spending weekends in Portland. I renovated Grandma Eleanor's house slowly, carefully, keeping everything she loved and updating what needed updating. The garden she'd maintained for decades became my project. I learned to grow tomatoes and roses. I hosted my first Thanksgiving in the house in 2019. Uncle James, Aunt Carol, Emma, and several cousins came. We cooked together, told stories about Grandma Eleanor, and didn't once discuss property values or inheritance. It was the best Thanksgiving I'd ever had. In 2020, I took a new position at a Portland-based wealth management firm. I moved into Grandma Eleanor's house full-time. I work from the office she used for her volunteer coordination, the same room where she planned community garden events and wrote letters to the editor about zoning laws. Sometimes I sit in her chair and feel like she's still here, smiling at how everything worked out. My parents and Victoria still live 15 minutes away. We don't talk. They send birthday cards. Always late, always generic. I don't respond. People ask if I feel guilty. If I regret how things unfolded. The answer is no. Grandma Eleanor gave me more than a house. She gave me validation. She gave me proof that someone saw me clearly and valued me accurately. She gave me a foundation, literally and figuratively, to build the life I deserved. And she taught me that sometimes, the most loving thing a family member can do is draw a clear line between what's earned and what's expected. Victoria expected the house because she'd always gotten everything she wanted. I earned it because I showed up consistently, loved genuinely, and never once calculated what I might gain. That's the difference. And that's why when Dad's fork dropped on Thanksgiving 2018 I smiled. Because after 29 years of being second place in my own family, Grandma Eleanor had made sure that in the one thing that really mattered, in legacy, in love, in being seen, I finally came first. It's been 6 years since that Thanksgiving. The house is worth $2.4 million now. I refinanced last year and paid off the remaining mortgage Grandma Eleanor had, $87,000, in a single payment. Victoria got engaged last month. Mom called, the first time in 4 years, to ask if Victoria could use the family house for wedding photos. I said no. She hung up without another word. Uncle James visited last weekend. We sat on the porch, drinking coffee from Grandma Eleanor's cups, the ones Victoria didn't take. Do you ever wonder if you should have handled it differently? He asked. I looked out at the garden. At the rose bushes I'd learned to prune. At the tomato plants heavy with fruit. At the house that represented 62 years of one woman's life and legacy. No, I said. Grandma Eleanor made a choice. She chose me. And I'm honoring that choice by protecting what she valued and living the life she wanted me to have. Your parents still think you manipulated her. My parents still think achievement should be inherited, not earned. They'll die thinking that. He nodded. And Victoria? Victoria will spend the rest of her life believing she was robbed of something she deserved. But deserving something means earning it. She never understood that. We sat in comfortable silence. Grandma Eleanor would be proud of you, Uncle James said finally. I smiled. I know. That's the only opinion that ever mattered. Inside the house, in a frame on the mantel, sits Grandma Eleanor's letter. Next to it is a photo of us from 2016, taken the day we signed the deed. We're standing on the same porch, her arm around my waist, both of us smiling. She knew exactly what she was doing, and so did I.